Adaptability is how we survive, and it's how we stay healthy. And it's when that adaptability bubble, once we get to the edge of the bubble, and if, like a sports person, is pushing their body's limit their body to its limits and the limits of its adaptability, when you push past the borders of that bubble of adaptability, you hit into compensation, and at some point compensation isn't going to be possible. You've got to ask the body to do too much compensating for the extra load, and when the body kind of goes, no, I can't take any more, that's when you're going to hit dysfunction. And so you've got to try and bring it back into the bubble of adaptation. And we adapt all the time. Adaptation is about.
Okay, so no, that's
good. It's about living. It's about how I get from my house to the shops and back without falling over, without bumping into somebody, without being run over by a car or a bike. By when I get my bag of groceries, being able to carry it without falling over, because I adapt my body posture in order to carry it.
So what is going to happen then is we live our lives within a certain bubble of activity. You know where that boundary is?
Yeah.
But then as a result of the aging process, the shape of that bubble changes. So suddenly we find ourselves doing an activity where we're up against the limit of that.
A lot sooner than we were before.
And so what you're proposing is, when that happens, that we have to go into an adaptability phase.
Well, the body would do it naturally anyway.
Okay.
Because let's just say I've had an injury, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm not an older person, but let's say I've had an injury, I turned over my ankle, I broke my ankle doesn't work. It's supposed to go through this full range of motion. It doesn't anymore. It stays like this.
Right.
It stays in this shape. So my adaptability in this case is I'm going to walk different. It doesn't mean I can't walk. It just means my gait is going to change. And the problem is, because that's not working to its full capacity in the ideal body, other things will compensate and change. Other things will compensate for that lack.
Yep.
But it will still be within the adaptability bubble. And it's only when perhaps something has been asked to compensate for too long, like my other leg might get really, my hip, my knee, this knee might get locked up. There might be something else in the chain that might start complaining because that isn't doing the job.
And what the engineers like is, when some limit happens, like you break your ankle, that they come up with a piece of technology which pushes the boundary of the bubble again, so that you have the function.
Pushes it back out so you're full function.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that may not be the best way to do it. There might be other ways of doing it.
I mean, it's not always necessary to push the bubble back out, unless it's like what they teach us in college is you don't have to make somebody. You don't have to put it all back right again in order for somebody to be able to function again. Basically, what you want to do, there's two things you want to do to a person who comes into your practice in pain. You want to try and reduce their pain in order to restore function.
Right.
Restoring function means restoring the function to that human being in front of you, so that he or she can do his daily life, his job, her job, whatever. That person can live their life with, that they can just live their lives without pain, and they don't have to be perfectly shaped, they don't have to be perfectly functional, but they have to be functional to the place where they feel like they are able to live their lives properly and well.
How your joints work and how everything works and all that, right?
Yeah.
Now, while I think doing that in a creative process does it in a way that's different than doing a yoga or Pilates class. Do you agree or disagree?
I would agree.
So what is it that's different about the creative process that takes you to knowledge of your own physical?
I mean, to some extent they both work at giving you the awareness, because you go to a Zumba class or you go to a yoga class and the teacher or the class expects you to do something with your body that you wouldn't normally do in your normal life. So therefore you get a heightened awareness of certain things you didn't know you could do, or positions you never thought you'd be in, that kind of stuff. But when you're going for the creative stuff, it's like you have more freedom. You have more freedom to investigate the things you want, or you can limit it. You have the freedom to limit. your investigation to one body part, to one joint, to one space in the room. You know, you've the ability to go out and push the boundaries and maybe try and find that wall. Try and find out how many times I can do this without breaking something, well not breaking it, how many times I can do this without the muscles actually giving out to me and saying, stop doing it!
Yeah.
You know, and hitting a limit in that way. And then perhaps pushing through it and seeing where that takes you. And sometimes it's about a mental limit. I don't know, I could talk about this and bounce off walls and how is it different? What's the question? How is it different to going to a class? How is it different?
The intent is different.
Yeah.
So the intent of making a piece is to somehow explore or communicate something.
Communication, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're now so it's about communicating.
It's about communicating something, but it's about finding a way to communicate that. Finding a way for me, if it's me creating, finding a way for me and whoever to communicate whatever it is that we're trying to communicate.
But you have to, as a dancer, you have to do that through your body.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're trying to communicate something and you're using your body.
Yeah.
So that means that you internally have to explore how your body can function. Is that it?
I could give you a very osteopathic answer.
Well, give me an osteopathic answer.
It depends.
Go.
It depends
On?
what you're trying to do. It depends on the piece you're trying to make. It depends on what you're trying to say. That's my osteopathic answer.